What flowers to sow in February? That's what we're going to be talking about today, because maybe you're wondering to yourself, what to sow in February? Or what flowers can I plant in February? Well, I have got some great recommendations despite the time of year. Plus, I've got another great YouTube gardener that you are going to love with their one seed that if you sow nothing else, you have to sow this. Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome back to my monthly seed sowing guide for flowers. It might be late winter, and despite the conditions, there are still some great flowering plants that you can start now from seed. Now, this is by no means an exhaustive list, especially because there are simply so many flowering plants to choose from. What it is instead is my edited selection of some really lovely things to grow, some annuals, some perennials, some common, some just a little bit different. And as always, make sure that you really do know and understand your own local growing conditions, particularly when it comes to your last frost date. Because for instance, where I live, our last frost date is approximately early to mid-May. Now, depending on where you live, you may need a propagator, a source of light, or a covered growing area to really ensure success. There's no need to be noting down the seeds that I'm going to be discussing today. I've made it even easier for you than that. All you need to do is head across to my website, niallgardens.com, or follow the link in the description below to get access to my seed lists. And while you're there, make sure to sign up to my email newsletter also. Now, let's talk seeds. Okay, so let's kick off by talking about a nice selection of things that I think are going to give you really standout flowers that are quite easy to get growing. Now, I know that some people will start their hardy annuals in February. You absolutely can, but I do think it's just a little bit on the early side for that, and I would recommend starting them in March. So for that reason, we're going to go through the majority of the hardy annuals next month. But for now, my first recommendation is going to be something that may be a little bit of a surprise, and it's foxgloves. Now, normally you would sow foxgloves in the autumn because they're biennial, and then that way they germinate and they grow through the winter so that you get flowers nice early on in the first year. But if you haven't got round to sowing any yet, my personal experience is that providing you get these started a good 10 to 12 weeks before your last frost date, you are going to get some flowers in your first year. And then the ones that don't flower this year, well, they're going to develop into nice, healthy plants that will grow through this year and will be perfectly set up for next year's flowering. I'm growing two different types this year. I always go with a regular Digitalis purpurea, which is your typical foxgloves that comes in all of those purples and pinks and even some whites. But I'm also growing a second type, which is called Digitalis ferruginea. And it is just like a regular foxglove, except the flowers are a really lovely kind of rust orange colour, and they do add just a different kind of colour into the garden. And for my next really solid choice, well, I mentioned it back in January, but I think it's worth mentioning again: sweet pea. Sweet pea are so easy to grow, and getting them started now in nice tall pots or even toilet roll tubes will mean that you have nice strong plants that can build up and get strong through the spring so that you get nice early flowers come around June time. Once they start flowering in June, they're going to keep going all the way through the summer, providing you keep them dead-headed, and that scent is just brilliant. They make lovely cut flowers. They're a total winner of a plant pretty much for any garden. You can get a really good selection of different types of sweet pea, but for me this year, I'm going to be growing Kupani, which is a bicolour type. Part of it is a raspberry pink and the other part is a lovely purple. I think they're great, and in fact, I believe they're very popular with Monty Don. So that's a fairly good recommendation in itself. And then if you want maybe something that's a slightly more traditional flower, certainly when it comes to cut flowers, this chrysanthemum. You can get chrysanthemums started now. They'll need a little bit of a warmth just to get them going, so maybe around 15 to 18 degrees. Not necessarily propagator worthy heat. You could probably get them going on a windowsill instead, but if you get them going Those flowers, as traditional as they are brilliant cut flowers, and they come in such a range of colours. Everything from whites to yellows and oranges, pinks, reds, all the way through to really like rust orange colours. So much variation, definitely give them a go. By now, you'll know that every month I recommend one seed that if you sow nothing else, you have to sow this. Well, this year, rather than those seed recommendations coming from me, instead, they're going to come from some top YouTube gardeners and growers. And for February, that's Erica from her channel, Erica's Little Welsh Garden.
Hello, it's Erica from Erica's Little Welsh Garden. We're in February now, and as a predominantly vegetable gardener, I find this is a really exciting time of the year. And that's because I've already started sowing some seeds, but I'm really focusing on getting organised and planned so I have a really good growing season ahead. And one of the things that I've decided to do alongside my vegetables this year is to actually grow some flowers too. We all know flowers look absolutely beautiful, but they're also a great way to attract those beneficial insects to the garden too. The flower seeds that I'm going to be sowing this month are poppies. Now, if you don't sow anything else, you have to sow these. I've gone with this variety here, which is called Iceland Mixed. This is a perfect variety because the early February sowings will start flowering in early June, which will be an amazing time to get beneficial insects into your vegetable patch. I've also gone for this mix because it is a hardy perennial, which means once I've sown it, it will come back year after year, even if we've had a really harsh winter, which as part of a kitchen garden, it's a great thing to have.
Icelandic poppies really are a great recommendation, and in fact I've got some of the seed myself to sow and grow this year as well. I can't wait to see how they're going to look. If you haven't already subscribed to Erica's channel, I'll leave a link in the description down below so that you can head across and check out her videos. Okay, so for my next two recommendations, I'm going to break my own rules here because they're bulbs and not seeds. But regardless, I think they're really worthy flowers to have in your garden. One will be for the summer, but the other group are for exactly this time of year in late winter, January, February time. And it's these. Hidden amongst the leaves are these little beauties, snowdrops. And I think there is just something really delicate and really beautiful about them. And to have flowers at this time of year, when so much of the garden is sitting either bare or dormant, well, I think there's something a bit special about that. And the reason I'm talking about them now is because not only do they flower now, February is a great time to buy them. Despite the fact that they're bulbs, generally the best way to buy them is when they are what is referred to as in the green, which is that they've finished flowering but they still have their leaves. Go to the garden centre or look online and you can buy these in the green. You can get them planted at this time of year, and you know that next year you're going to be rewarded with these gorgeous little white flowers in clumps dotted around your garden. And that brings us on to the summer flowering bulb, which are lilies. Now, really, the ideal is to have got your lilies planted, whether they're planted in pots or in the ground, by autumn time. However, if you haven't got that done yet and you can get your hands on some lily bulbs, it's not too late and you can plant them now in February. Doing that will still mean that you'll get lovely flowers in the summer. And for lilies, some of them have the most strong, heady fragrance, which is incredible, but also they're those really massive trumpet-shaped flowers that come in all manner of colours and are so striking, whether you have them out in the garden or whether you have them in pots on your patio. If you don't have any, treat yourself to even just a few lily bulbs and get them planted up, because I don't think you're going to regret it. There are some brilliant flowering perennials that you can get started at this time of year in February, because although it's early, this does let you get a little bit of a head start on the things that then need to be sown in March and April, and it just helps balance your workload out a little bit so that you don't have a massive glut of everything that you need to sow in March and April. So to kick off, let's talk about one of my all-time favourite plants, which is Verbena Bonariensis. I think pretty much everybody knows what verbena looks like. Those really big, tall flower stems that are very thin and very fine, and then on top of them, little clusters of tiny purple flowers. They work beautifully planted in amongst, in my mind, almost anything, because they are so light and airy, and actually they're quite easy to grow. Take your seed now and sow it on some compost and keep it at a temperature of about 24 to 27 degrees. So realistically, you're talking about using a propagator. What you do want to make sure to do though, is whatever you've sown the seeds into, cover it with a little bit of polythene or put it in a sealed bag to really help get the germination going. Last month, I talked about getting pelargoniums started, which I think of as indoor geraniums, even though you can certainly plant them outside for the summer. But in February, you can also get traditional hardy geraniums going also. They're really easy because they have very low temperature requirements. They'll even germinate in temperatures as low as 5 to 10 degrees. So have a look through the seed catalogues or online and pick yourself out some nice hardy geraniums. I like how loose they are and how once you get them going, they're really easy to care for and they flower so well and so constantly all the way through, really until the last frosts, that they are brilliant, brilliant value. And for my very final flower seed recommendation for February, it's this, Echinacea or the coneflower. And in particular, I really like growing Echinacea purpurea. I love those magenta colours of the flowers. They are so standout. And as you can see, as well as the petals, you have this really striking cone-shaped centre to the flower. They stand about 18 inches tall and they really are striking wherever you plant them. But what you do want to do is get them going now. Technically, they're a perennial, but they do work better as a short-lived perennial or even as an annual because they're going to flower really quite late in the season. You're talking late summer and into early autumn. So get them started now on some compost. They're going to need a temperature of about 20 to 24 degrees to get them germinating. So again, you're looking at a propagator, but once you get them going, I've found personally that they're really easy to care for once they're started. Just keep potting them on and then get them planted out once all risk of frost is gone. Do that and you're almost certain to have these lovely blooms in your garden this year. If this hasn't got you fired up for some flower seed sowing fun, then I don't know what will. And the great thing is that everything I covered in my January flower seed sowing video last month can also be sown this month in February, so make sure to check out that as well. But if vegetables are more your kind of thing, here's a link to my February vegetable seed sowing guide. And until next time, see you later.